Good night and welcome to Tuesday Tea Talks. My name is Mariela, the host of the show. We have a special guest tonight. Why don't you introduce yourself and let us know who you are, where you come from, what do you do, what's your name?
Sure. Hi, Mariella. I'm so happy to be here.
I
Thank you
know.
for having
I am so excited to have you.
me. I'm excited to be here. So it's going to be a lot of excitement. My name is Tamiko Sadler. I'm Jamaican. I'm in Jamaica. I run my own small business here. Um, so I'm doing a couple of things. I'm, CEO of our small business that my husband started 15, no, more than that, 17 years ago. But I've only joined the business maybe 2 years ago. Before that, I used to be a regional executive for Scotiabank Caribbean.
Okay.
And I grew up in the banks. When I just started working, I started working at the Scotiabank. And then I've been a career banker doing different things, whether it's been in the branch or corporate. And then my last position when I left was I was a regional manager for a district of branches.
Oh,
So yeah, it's been
it's
exciting.
been exciting. Tell me how is that? How is it from going from a corporate world to being part of your own business? How was that transition for you?
Oh, mercy. It was crazy. Like I was telling somebody the other day that, at one day I had like a HR, I had a staff matter. And I was like, I need HR. And then I was like, I am HR. If I
True.
had that issue before, I'd be like on the phone, I'd be like, I need one of you guys to come down here and we need to get this done and I need this straightened out. And I
But
had to be like, that's me.
that's
I
you.
need to do that.
And let me ask you, how is it for you to be a woman, right? Being having your business and dealing with issues like that. How do you get the maybe not even the stamina to deal with issues that sometimes, like you said, HR could have held or dealt with before, but now it's you. How do you do that? Being a woman, being assertive, and still getting your your point across. How do you do that?
Sometimes you have to be very it takes a lot of different skills. It takes diplomacy, it takes being like strong, that you're not going to not that you're not willing to be flexible on a point, but you kind of have to know that if this is, let us say it's something like a customer service issue, if it's a strong customer service issue where there's it affects the values of your company, you have to be really really determined to push through with it. And sometimes, depending on what it is and which particular staff member it is, it's easy to deal with, and other times it's not as easy.
So do you encounter a lot of pushback when you have to make those decisions, those assertiveness, having
I think more so with the men than with the ladies.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Why do
yeah.
you think is that though?
I
Do you
think it's culture. I mean, it's Caribbean, and you still have that struggle, right? That it's equal,
yes. So
because
so let
it's
me
your king in the home. The moms spoil the boys, and they grow up, and their sisters are very different, and everybody else is being differential to them, and then they come in the workplace and they have a lady boss, and
and
sometimes
it clashes.
yeah.
It clashes.
Sometimes we have a culture clash.
And I was speaking the other day with somebody too. She's in the military, and she was telling me that in the military though, I thought it was different, that she had issues with the male soldiers, but she said no, that they had taught them like so much respect for who, regardless if you're a female or not, or a male, that they have taught them so much respect. But I have encountered, even in the Latin culture, that it is so true, right? That when we try to speak, and I'm telling you, I'm one of four. I have three brothers. I'm the
Mhm.
oldest. So I'm the oldest. And yes, I speak my mind, but even with them, I do encounter that pushback, right? And they love me and they accept me, but then there's that pushback. And when I'm out in the market, or I'm, in the business doing, my daily lives, I see that too. I see that pushback, like saying, oh yeah, we're trying to be 2020, everybody's equal, everybody's good, but you're still a female. What are you doing here? What's for dinner?
And it's good. It's all good when we're talking about it philosophically. But when it comes down to a matter of point, like we have an incident, then you feel it more.
You do, you do. You're absolutely right. See, in my house, I do have an amazing husband. He's awesome. He comes in, he cooks dinner if he has to. He needs, if he has to do laundry, he does laundry. Um, and we have that equal. But it is, and mind you, he is from the Caribbean too. He's from Puerto Rico, so they're strong. But he has like changed his mentality and say, you know what, my daughters are not going to grow up like that. So he, and also with my son, when he speaks to them, like, no, we're going to, we do it equally. We divide the short, whatever we're going to do at the house equally with mom and sisters.
That's
um
amazing because that's how
it
you get
is,
it to
it is,
change.
it is, it is.
Yeah,
But then, we encounter that, yeah, even outside driving, when we're driving, or we're maniacs, oh, you guys are too emotional, you guys cannot make rational decisions. But when we come to, to the table, and to be honest, sometimes, yeah, the men see the end point, but we see those little steps that, like, oh yeah, we see the end point, but what about this, and what about this, and before we move forward, we have to fix this. Let me
yeah.
ask you something. How do you then define your influence as a leader in a community or in your business, when there's other males, involved, and then you see that in a way, kind of like
Of
saying,
course, I can talk about that because it's certainly in so when I was in Scotia, I had 11 branches, and 10 of them had male managers.
wow,
So 10 of my direct reports, I had maybe 15 direct reports in that, and then everything that cascades below them. So maybe about 1,500 employees
wow,
altogether.
wow,
But in terms of like right below me would be the branch managers, and out of my 11,
wow,
10, 10 were men.
wow.
And you really just have to show that you're reasonable, I think, and that you, unfortunately, you still have to show that you are way more qualified.
Yes.
So you have to be always more available, more willing to confront the hard issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I think women are great at that.
You there? I agree.
Yeah, we are great at that because the issues that they would not want to confront, I would have to confront. And I would come in and do it bold and do it with a heart and show
Yeah.
empathy
Yeah.
and be willing to look at innovative solutions to whatever challenges they had
Excellent.
and
Excellent.
and move it. And I think it's the same, regardless of what industry you're in. You have
You're
to be prepared to come to the table, confront it, and try and think out of the box and bring innovative solutions. And that I think is a winning formula.
Yeah. And let me ask you, now that we're talking about bringing it to the table, how did your tables look when you had to come in and you had to have 10 male managers and another female in the room? How did those tables look? How was the dynamic between you and the people that were directly reporting to you?
I think one of the great things is that my executive vice president was a lady
Oh,
and our CEO was a lady.
awesome.
And in Jamaica culture, we have a really strong culture of female CEOs and women being strong in business, whether it's small business. Yeah, it's so awesome. Like, you have women business owner kind of support groups and that you can, be a part of and have that kind of camaraderie, that kind of, single spirit, same minded kind of person so that you can bounce off issues, challenges. It's just such a great resource to have. But in some countries, I know because when I used to have direct responsibility for product execution in the Caribbean for Scotia. There are lots of countries that don't have that. A lot of countries in the Caribbean that don't have that strong female leadership, and that still continues to be a challenge. But I think in the Jamaican situation, it's not so much. So yes, the table look like that, but I think everybody comes to the table being judged on their own merit.
Mm-hmm.
And but once you've been able to demonstrate, and I certainly had a strong career that demonstrated, um, capability, going over and beyond, and being a excellent performer, being, it's kind of hard to say this, but like you're not an asshole,
Yeah.
and that you have a heart of gold, and then everything will be fine.
Great, great. It is true. Um, how do you build that trust though, as a leader in that culture? Even though, like you said that, and it is amazing that in Jamaica you have a group of women that are, go-getters, that are out in the front, that are having positions, high positions, and are influencing the culture. But how do you build the trust as a female leader for them to say, you know what, she has a good head over her shoulders, we can trust what she's saying? Because we do see
Right.
her track, but how do you build the trust within your group?
I think you have to be real, so you have to prepare to speak the truth and act it,
Wow.
and then trust comes.
Wow.
And then trust comes, and you have to, I think, make yourself vulnerable. So sometimes you have to say, this is not in my control, but this is how I'm going to attack this for you. I am going to do this, and when I do this, I need you to do this, so that both of us can win this.
So you establish like a plan for
Yeah, you
for
got
it.
it. Yeah, everything has to have a strategy. You have to, or else you won't win. You
Um,
won't win.
let me so besides having a plan, what other strategies can you give girls that are listening to us that want to say, you know what, I do one day want to be a CEO, I do want to have a group of people that I want to lead? What advices or what strategies you can give to them for them to say, you know what, this is what you should do, you should volunteer at this place, or you should move like this, you should stay, maybe certain years in this position to get to know, like give us some strategies so we can grow more.
Sure, let me think. So I think you need to do your research,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to build a community or your network or different things that different people call it, both in your particular. So let's talk about being in the bank and then being in your business.
Mm-hmm.
So in the bank, you need to um, create the network within your bank, but then also create a network outside your bank of
Yes.
other bankers.
Yes.
So you kind of, like we would do things where I would know all my counterparts at the other banks, and we'd go out and like have drinks and talk about, what we're doing and what we're planning to do and so on. And um, people say, I thought you guys were enemies. And we're like, we're not enemies, crazy. Friends, because, everybody has to win. And in a
Exactly.
marketplace, you all can be there. There's a space for everybody.
I agree.
And so reach out to your partner. Don't buy into the craziness that you're competitors and so you're enemies. You're not.
True.
It's good for the industry when you are friends and you're
Yes.
gonna move it, right? Like
Exactly.
Shakespeare said, rising waters raise all ships. And that's what you want to do. You want to be a part of that rising water. And so you need to do your research. You need to build your network. I would say you need to keep learning.
Mm-hmm.
Be out there, put yourself out there, be constantly learning. And then you get there.
And what about in your business?
And then in your business, it's pretty much the same thing. You need to know your competition. You need to be talking to them. You need to build your network. You want to have like-minded people, not necessarily maybe in your industry, but other CEOs to see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So like COVID is going on now, right? And
Yeah.
different governments were doing different things. So
Yes.
you need that network. So if curfew is going on or they're saying stay 6 feet apart, how do you deal with your retail space? How did you set up your staff space. Get more ideas so that you can. It's okay to share, and
Exactly. Yeah, it is okay. And like you were saying something, yes. And before you were saying something about innovating, right? Innovating ideas. A few weeks ago I heard this phrase and it has been resonating in my mind. Like I'm telling you, like it's speaking to me every time I hear that word. It says that innovation, this person said innovation is what turns the tide.
it
Right? So
is.
so yeah, and I'm telling you, it is
That's
amazing.
so true.
It is because yes, we are in the times of COVID, right? It's crazy. It's life is not as if it was at the beginning of 2020, right? It's
Or
not. It's
2019.
yes, the end of 2019. Uh, it is different. It is like yes. How am I going to network if I need to be having that social distance, that physical distance? How is it going to look? What is it that I'm going to use? How am I going to still tap with my fellow CEOs? How am I going to follow up? How are they going to know that I'm still available, that I'm still here, that I'm still working? And can you talk a little bit about how is networking looking for you now? In 2020 with COVID, with curfews, like you were saying, with all these regulations that is global, right? It's not even, let's say, it's particular of the island, or particular of the Florida, or particular of Central America. It's a global pandemic. How
It's
do you
global.
deal with that? How do you establish that? How do you keep networking with social
It
distancing?
changes. It changes. It's now so much more technology driven. And that's very difficult, I think, for Arela, Latin and Caribbean people. We like to see each other, we like to touch each other and say and hug each other, and you know, and invite people to do things together and so on. So you have to adjust, but the technology is an amazing time. It's an
Yeah,
amazing time because the technology facilitates us keeping in touch. Look how we're doing this.
exactly. In two different places.
We're in two different places, and we're going to be able to we're able to have an interview like this. And so you just have to reach out and be fearless. That's
Yes.
a big part of it. Be fearless. I mean, realize that everybody else is human, everybody else, and just take a deep breath and be fearless and do it.
I like that word, fearless. Absolutely right. We need to be fearless. And like you
Yeah.
said, it is true. We like to touch. When we're having meetings, there is food at our meeting table.
Has to be.
There is coffee, there is things, but then we need to innovate. How are we going to have these meetings? How is it going to look? Moving our hands, being more friendly. How is our body? Mannerisms. How is that going to help us get our point across?
Yeah.
Let me see, what other questions do I have for you? How do leaders get better at leading?
Leaders get better at leading by being unafraid of the feedback. You have to engage and ask for it, and you have to take it. And sometimes, you're going to get somebody who's not necessarily trying to be faithful to the process. They're just trying to be hurtful.
Yep.
But by and large, most people are going to tell it to you truthfully,
Hmm.
and and then you just have to absorb it, as
Hmm.
hard as it might be, and try and incorporate it into what you're doing. So if somebody is gonna say, like for example, one of the meetings I had, I mean, there was a point in time when I was so mad with my team, and they said, Tamiko, you're a dragon lady. Because I was like breathing fire. I was mad. And I was doing it. And my team after the meeting, nobody had anything to say at the meeting, right? Um, and then like a couple of days after I started getting the calls, they're like, boss lady, maybe you could have done it in the middle. Because they knew that whatever I was talking about in that moment, it wasn't that it wasn't authentic
Hmm.
and that it didn't have to be said, but they said my timing could be better. They
Oh,
said, do it in the middle of the meeting, So the beginning is warm. We deal with heavy, heavy business in the middle, and then we can leave on a high note.
On a high note.
Or what are we gonna do to make it better going forward? But I was breathing up some fire, and I was like chopping down, and I was like, "There's gonna be consequences." I shouldn't even say laughing because I was like,
No, I totally,
like monster lady. But
totally understand.
yeah, and so when you get the feedback, I was like, okay.
And let's talk a little bit about feedback, right? Because the feedback, that word, sometimes they have a negative connotation, right? It is
Some
like,
people think it's scary.
when we walk in and we're like, oh, we are going to give you a little bit of feedback. We observe something. And so, we come in with our papers, right? We're going to have a conversation, but they know that it is a feedback. It's coming. There's
All be good.
exactly that there are steps, right, that need to improve. But that word feedback, how do we as leaders, how do we get better? Because it is easier sometimes to give feedback down, but it's hard to receive when the feedback is coming from down up. But you listen to your team, like you said, there were during the days, after the meeting, you started receiving phone calls. So that means that your team was very comfortable coming to you and giving you that feedback that
Right.
that maybe made you think and said, you know what, it is true.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do things differently. How do we
Yes, yes. Yes, I think when you're authentic with your team
Mhm.
and you build trust, like we talked about before,
Yeah.
then they'll be willing to give you feedback. And then you also have to make yourself vulnerable.
Yeah.
So you're fearless because you're open to it and you'll take it, and you're vulnerable. You will take it and you'll say, you're not gonna be the person that's gonna say, who you talking to? Don't call me back and hang up on them. You're gonna say, yes, I appreciate you telling me this. I appreciate your candor. Thank you for sharing. I know it can't have been easy. And then you think about it, and if there's truth in it and it's not meant to be hurtful, or
Exactly.
sometimes even when there's truth in it, it is hurtful because maybe you're just not in a good place. But to win, you have to take feedback from your team, because for
Yeah.
you to win, your team has to win, and then you win, and your boss wins. And when everybody is on that winning trajectory, things will be good. And it starts by being authentic. It starts by being fearless and vulnerable. And
Yes.
letting your team understand that you're there for them. You're in the trenches, and you're going to say, I have to be the one to tell you when it's not going right.
Yeah.
And let me tell you before the big boss have to come and tell all of us that it's not going right,
Yeah.
But maybe there's messages and lessons, maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe there are all kinds of things, but
Yeah.
be open, be fearless, be authentic, and I think be vulnerable.
Awesome.
And it'll be
Awesome.
good.
Amazing. Amazing. Let me ask you then, how do we deal with that ego? Right? Because okay, let's say we accept the feedback. Our people are coming, they're giving us feedback, but there's still our ego, right? It's still like, it's painful. I am accepting the feedback. I am accepting what they have to say. But how do I deal with my ego being hurt? Because how come I didn't see it, right? Because maybe,
Yeah,
I didn't see it from my corner, because in that moment that was happening in the meeting, I didn't see it. How do I deal with my ego?
that's a hard one. It's a hard one. It's true. It's and that's why we have to be vulnerable, because your ego tells you that you don't do anything wrong, and you're doing it because you know more than they do, or and you have to. That's why you have to put yourself there. And I think for me, what worked is my network, and being able to come to my network in taking everything down and saying, because this is somebody who you trust and who's
Exactly.
going to give it to you. So, like at my job at Scotia, we had a group, a network of 5, and we almost took a pledge. We were like all junior executives going up until we all became like senior executives, and we took a pledge that we would be true to each other.
Wow.
all the time,
That
all
is,
the time.
that is
And so,
powerful.
yeah, and so I would go to my network or one and say, my team said this. Tell me straight. Am I? How do I do this? Because sometimes you can't do it from inside, right?
Yes,
You need some
yes.
help. And so you need that team, that core around you. And so that's why it's really important to build your network as well, because they'll help you to climb those hurdles. Understand, is it truthful? Is it worth it to do? Because there's sometimes like people aren't going to like what you did, but it had to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me ask you that you right at that level of your with your network, with your mentors, mentees, that group of ladies that were going up at the same time. How do you deal with that that pettiness that of girls that we have, that cattiness that sometimes that is behind us? How do we just say, you know what, we're not going to give in to that, we're just going to pour into each other and build each other up, and we're not going to be like, because I have experienced it, that you think that everything is well, but then you have somebody talking behind your back, right? How do you, and I know that it's talking about the trust, the networking, but how can we as women get to that level of trust and saying, yes, it is possible, just to be completely trusting my network, completely trusting the girls that are around me, that they were just give it to me as it is, without any backlash, without any cattiness, without going for my jugular and trying to rip me apart? How do we do that?
That's a great question, Mariel, and it's hard, right? And and it's competitive. And maybe that's why everybody can't be in your core network.
Yes.
You know, you have to choose.
Yeah.
And what it means is that you need to commit to yourself that you're not going to be the girl that's catty. And
Yes.
you're not going to be the girl. Because if each of us do that, it gets better.
It does.
And so you can have your core network, and that's fine. And it can mean that everybody else who's outside of your core network, you commit to not dragging them down. You're gonna lift them.
So
And
it
if
is
that means
a
and
personal commitment.
yeah, you have to make that personal commitment as a woman in business, because it,
Wow.
it, it does nothing for our gender. It does nothing for the business if you are going to lift yourself by tearing down one of the other ladies in the office.
That
It
is
doesn't,
powerful.
or in the industry. It just doesn't make sense.
That is powerful. What you just said right now, it is powerful. I even got goosebumps saying that, going to build yourself up by tearing others down. That is amazing. And I think that does take a level, like you were saying, no, it is my personal decision. I will not participate in it. I know that everybody has a place wherever they are, and to rise to be the best version of that they can be. But I will not participate, right? It starts with me, then it starts, and I will feed that into my network, and then I'm going to go outside my circle and I'm going to do the same practices outside my circle. That is amazing. That is, I'm telling you, that's amazing. You're just like blowing my mind. You're just like, yes, yes, and thank you
That's how
again.
we do it. And that's what we all have to do. And that's what we teach our daughters to do, so
Yes,
that it gets better.
yes.
It gets better everywhere.
I yes, yes, yes. You just have left me without words. Yes, it does get better. It gets better. I love this. Um, so how are you called to greatness?
Oh, my call to greatness. Ooh. I have, and again, a personal commitment to do it every day. Do it every day. Like, I am not going to be lazy about it. Every day I'm gonna bring my A game. And it's just what you have to do. And so right now there are a couple of things. So Nasheen and I think you interviewed Nasheen as well. We're doing our doctorate.
Yes.
And every day you just have to decide that you're doing it. you're doing it. You're doing it. Whatever it is. When I go to work, I'm doing it. When I do volunteer, I'm doing it. You just, and that's why you're called to greatness. It's not that you do something to me,
Mhm.
in my definition. It's not that you're going to be the person that's leading the march and the protest, because that's one kind of greatness. It is.
Mhm.
But my call to greatness is to do my best every day,
I mean,
every day, and just
absolutely
keep
right.
it going.
Absolutely right. It is individual. Well, thank you, thank you for being here with us tonight. You
It
have
was great. Thank you for having
a
me.
pleasure. I love you. You need to come back. We need to have
I'll be back.
conversations.
Maybe you can have us when Nashina and I graduate. We
Yes.
can do it together.
Of course, I will have the doctors back over here so that you guys can tell us how this process has
About
been.
doing it, yeah.
Yes, because let me tell you, it is hard to go back to school. It is hard to say, you know what, I'm going to become a doctor because, first of all, I want it for myself, right? Because I want
Right.
it, I want the title. But then it's also what it takes. A lot of people don't see what it takes. For you, it takes traveling back and forth. For
Oh
you,
gosh, yeah.
for you, it's just packing your bags and saying, you know what, I need to be in Florida. Nasheen too. It is packing her
Nashina
bags.
too.
Yes, packing her bags and coming to Florida. So it is a commitment. It's like you said,
Yeah.
showing up and doing it and doing it and doing it wherever you are, right? It
Every
doesn't
day.
it doesn't
Every day.
matter if it's at the bottom of it or at the top of an organization, but as long as you're showing up every day and just doing what you're supposed to do, then you do create greatness.
You will. It's inevitable. It must happen.
Yes.
Showing up and doing it every day, you'll be
Ex-
called to greatness.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for being with us tonight. You are amazing. Um, we need to
Thank you.
see.
I
We
think the
need.
same of you. And I want to encourage all your ladies, all your followers to be called to greatness and do what they need to do to be great.
Yes, yes. Thank you, and we will meet. I promise in person.
Most definitely.
We will after this COVID-19 disappears, or we get a vaccine or something. We will meet in person. Thank you again.
Yes. Thank you too, Mariello. Be safe.
You too.